The tariff letters are out. US President Donald Trump has issued formal letters to several countries. The US has announced a 25% tariff on goods entering the United States. The tariffs apply to Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Tunisia and Kazakhstan. For South Africa, the tariff is 30%. For other countries, the new tariff exceeds 30%. In total, 14 countries have been named so far. Laos faces the highest tariff, 40%, more than any other nation. All new tariffs will take effect from August 1. Now, President Trump stated that tariff talks with India are ongoing. He added that for other countries, the tariffs are non-negotiable, calling it the final deal. The White House added that President Trump is committed to securing the best deals for the American people and American workers. Now, the fight back has begun. Brazil's president said that they will retaliate against US tariffs. He also called Trump's tariff threat on social media irresponsible and warned that if the US imposes tariffs on Brazil, it should be ready for reciprocal action.
We're close to making a deal with India. Others we met with, and we don't think we're going to be able to make a deal, so we just send them a letter. If you want to play ball, you have to. This is what you have to pay. So as far as I'm concerned, we're done. We're sending out letters to various countries telling them how much tariffs they have to pay. Some will maybe adjust a little bit depending if they have a cause. We're not going to be unfair about it. I would say firm, but not 100% firm. If they call up and they say, would like to do something a different way, we're going to be open to that. But essentially, that's the way it is right now. Yeah.
Tariff letters that you sent today, final offers, or are they negotiable?
More or less final offer.
I have the signed letters that went out to both South Korea and Japan today, and there will be approximately 12 other countries that will receive notifications and letters directly from the President of the United States. And weeks ago, I stood at this podium and I told all of you that the President was going to create tailor-made trade plans for each and every country on this planet. And that's what this administration continues to be focused on. The President will also sign an executive order today delaying the July 9th deadline to August 1st. So the reciprocal tariff rate, or these new rates that will be provided in this correspondence to these foreign leaders, will be going out the door within the next month, or deals will be made. And those countries continue to negotiate with the United States. We've seen a lot of positive developments in the right direction, but the administration, the president and his trade team want to cut the best deals for the American people and the American worker. That's what they're focused on. Well, the president feels, generally speaking, that BRICS is seeking to undermine the interests of the United States. It's the president's utmost responsibility to put the interests of the United States first. That's how he views his job as president. So he's going to ensure that America is fairly treated on the world stage, and he'll take any action necessary to prevent countries from taking advantage of the United States and our people. He's closely monitoring it, which is why he put out a statement himself. He does not perceive these countries as growing stronger. He just perceives them as trying to undermine the United States' interests, and that's not okay with him, no matter how strong or weak a country may be.
And we're now being joined by David K. Johnston, who's an American journalist and author from Washington, D.C. David, do you think Donald Trump, with this move of imposing tariffs on 14 countries and more to come in the coming days, is igniting a full-blown trade war globally?
Oh, he is certainly igniting and blowing up the world trade order. But let's be clear about something. Countries that export do not pay the tariff. The tariff is paid by the consumers in the country to which goods are imported. Donald Trump doesn't understand this. He keeps saying in the statements you just ran, these countries will pay tariffs. No country in the world has the legal authority to tax another country. All tariffs do is raise the prices of goods that are tariffed in the country imposing them, and it allows domestic manufacturers to inflate their prices up to just below the level of the tariffed good. So Donald Trump's tariff scheme is really a scheme to extract money from the pockets of American consumers and enrich those who own manufacturing companies within the United States.
Right. Also, David, help us understand what prompted Donald Trump to impose these tariffs now. What is the idea behind imposing these, and how will this benefit the United States?
Well, first of all, Trump doesn't have the legal authority to do this. It's the Congress of the United States that controls tariffs. The Constitution says Congress shall have the power to collect taxes, duties, and imposts, and that means tariffs. Secondly, Trump has this bizarre belief that tariffs are borne by the country exporting the goods, and that is just out there in space. It has nothing to do with reality, and it's evidence of how really appallingly ignorant Donald Trump is about how the world works. But he can create a process that will be very damaging to world trade. We could well see other major countries, the EU, UK, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and India, for example, could form a new trading zone and exclude the US from it.
Absolutely, David. The consumers will eventually bear the brunt of these tariffs that are being imposed by US. But do stay with us. India Today Global's Pranay Upadhyay is also with us. Pranay, Donald Trump also made a point that US is close to striking a deal with India. So till when can we expect the final deal to be done between the two countries?
Anjali, indications are there that the India and United States can strike this deal before the deadline, the 1st of August. But as you know, you have heard India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and also the India's Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan clearly stating that India will not buckle down under any deadline pressure, because ultimately this is an issue of protecting the own interests, the own national interests, and especially the sticking points. As we were discussing, the sticking point remains the agriculture sector, the dairy sector, especially the genetically modified crops, especially the maize and soya. So these are the products, and especially the dairy products, remains a sticking point, because India is one of the world's largest milk producer and the dairy product producer, and that's why India want to protect own national interests. And as David was pointing it out, currently there is a tariff anxiety in the US markets. The US consumers are paying heavy prices for the imported goods, and as he rightly pointed out, the final authority remains with the US Congress, and the issue is already being has reached to the US courts. Maybe David could help us understand that whether the US courts, how soon the courts can pronounce, and what will happen, the fate of these tariff announcements made by the US president if the courts decides otherwise, because this remains a gray area, and this is actually a point on which many other countries, those who are negotiating with the United States, are also thinking about, what will happen if they seal a deal and the US courts decides otherwise, or the US Congress turns it down.
Right, Pranay, do stay with us. David, coming to you. So as my colleague was mentioning about the US court's decision on this tariff move by Donald Trump. So till when can we expect that decision to be out? And what if it turns down the move that has been taken by Donald Trump?
Well, I think that we're going to see very slow action by the courts on this, and we're going to see conflict about it. But the majority of the US Supreme Court has, in a series of decisions over the last 10 years, made it very clear that they're willing to rewrite American legal doctrine and practice in order to favor Donald Trump, because they support him, and they're willing to, in some cases, wipe out portions of the Constitution that he wants to change. So I think, while the outcomes here are unclear, they will certainly be slow in coming. At the same time, Donald Trump doesn't seem to recognize or appreciate countries acting in their own interests, such as India saying no to genetically modified soybeans and other crops, which, once you introduce them into your country, they begin to spread to all farms, not just those that might grow or use such crops.
Right, David. Also, another significant point is that the US is also targeting its key allies. If we talk about Japan and South Korea, tariffs have been imposed on these nations as well. So what message is the US trying to send out?
Well, Trump's message is very clear. I run the world. He himself said that a month ago, and that you are to bow down to dictator Donald Trump. That's been very clear. And I've been warning people since 2011 that Donald Trump believes, and I've known him for almost 40 years, that he believes he is the one person in the world capable of being the world dictator, and he should be allowed to do whatever he wants. He said in his first term that the Constitution allowed him to do anything he wanted. It does not say that, but he believes that. And so just as he has silly beliefs about tariffs, he also has no understanding of the history of the world. And this is a man who did not understand that what happened at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on December 7th, 1941. I don't know how you can grow up anywhere in the world, but especially America, and not know such basic facts. So Trump just doesn't understand the world. Now, he believes everybody is cheating the US. Why does he believe that? Because Donald Trump has spent his entire life cheating other people, cheating workers, cheating investors, cheating banks. He's gotten away with it for his whole life. And so, of course, in his mind, everybody else is trying to cheat him and trying to cheat the US. And that's what drives these ridiculous policies like his tariff proposals.
In fact, David, strong reactions have started pouring in from the countries where these tariffs have been imposed. We're seeing a Brazilian president saying that they have all the right to hit back. In fact, Lula da Silva has threatened of retaliatory tariffs.
Yes, and I expect countries will operate in their own self-interest. I mean, the key to diplomacy is understanding how do we align your interests with mine, and it can be very difficult to work that out, and it may take a lot of time. Donald has no understanding of that. His treatment of people throughout his career has been, this is what I want, you're going to do it, or I'm going to find some way to hurt you. And that just doesn't work in international diplomacy. So yes, the US is going to face retaliation. It's going to face various limits upon American exports. And that's going to harm the US economy, just as tariffs will harm it by raising the prices paid by American consumers.
All right, David K. Johnston, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and with all those details and for that context. Let us now tell you about what are the tariff that has been imposed by Donald Trump on the countries that have already received the tariff letter. Now, the first is Japan, that has been imposed a 25% tariff by the United States, and South Korea has got 25% tariff. If we talk about South Africa, 30% tariff has been imposed by Donald Trump on South Africa. Kazakhstan got 25%. And if we talk about Laos, there's 40% tariff that has been imposed by Donald Trump on Laos, which is the highest. And Malaysia, 25% tariff. Myanmar, 40%, which is also the highest. And Tunisia, 25%. Bosnia, 30%. Indonesia, 32%. If we talk about Bangladesh, 35%. Serbia, 35%. Cambodia, 36%. And the tariff that has been imposed on Thailand is 36%. And these tariffs are effective from the 1st of August 2025. So these tariffs ranging from 25% to 40% have been imposed, with the highest being on Laos and Myanmar, which is 40%. And we're now being joined by Business Today TV's Siddharth Zarabi. Siddharth, a very good morning to you. So these tariffs that have been imposed by Donald Trump, they're getting strong reactions globally. People have started hitting out, saying that we'll impose retaliatory tariffs despite Donald Trump's warning against retaliation.
Well, very clearly what has happened overnight is the following. The first key point to understand is that Donald Trump has pushed back his own deadline of July 9th by 3 weeks to the 1st of August. Why has he done this? He's still hoping for some deals to be made. If you look at the decision that he has announced about the new tariffs, it is basically a repeat of what was done earlier when he had first announced the July 9th deadline. At that time also, he had come out with a list of countries and a rate card of tariffs. The second major point that we need to understand at this stage is that in certain cases, for example, countries like Cambodia, the new tariff rate that has been proposed to be implemented from 1st of August is actually lower than what had earlier been proposed. So there is a second climb down that we can see from the details. The first is pushing back the deadline to 1st of August. The second is lower tariffs for certain countries. These countries, Japan, South Korea, South Africa, and others, are clearly those where he hopes that some trade deal happens. For example, with regard to Japan, Japan had actually expressed frustration that they did not know what the United States wanted, and therefore the deal was not going anywhere. And finally, the point about India, which is of great interest to us, Donald Trump has once again expressed hope that a trade deal is set to be signed, which means that there is no retaliatory action happening against India. The extended 3 weeks deadline gives more time for any final last-minute negotiations to be done. As is widely known, we have already had very extensive, detailed talks with the United States. A trade negotiation team led by the Special Secretary in the Commerce Ministry was there for well over a week. And it is now up to Donald Trump to take a decision. There is one final complication. Meanwhile, he is threatened that any country that supports BRICS will attract an additional 10% of tariffs. So we'll have to see what it really implies, because remember, we are also a founding member of BRICS along with Brazil, Russia, and of course, China.
All right, Siddharth, thank you so much for all those details and for that context.